Hi everyone, I'm Lily Walla. I'm the founder and CEO of Auggie. I'm also a mom to a very energetic toddler, and I'm pregnant. I was just telling Stephanie I don't remember starting solid. So I need this just as much as you do. And I'm so thrilled to welcome you to today's event. Feeding your baby is one of those rites of passage that are both magical and mystifying. One day you're spooning out mashed avocado, and the next you're negotiating like a peace treaty over peas. Whether you're just beginning the solids journey or deep into the toddler taste test phase, this session is here to meet you where you are. We've gathered Stephanie and myself who will share all of her insights, and we're just so excited to welcome you. You are not alone. Quickly, a special thank you to Little Spoon for presenting today's event. They're redefining what it means to nourish your little one with clean, healthy, and thoughtfully made meals that busy parents can trust. So let's dive in and make feeding feel just a little bit easier. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. This is fun. As you said, we have a lot to cover, so I'm really interested to see where everyone has questions, because I'm sure
Yeah,
it'll
and we are
everyone
getting
has questions.
people are writing in, and we have all different stages
Yeah.
here.
Uh,
Eating, just starting. So we'll
oh,
cover.
fabulous. So just to introduce myself, I am a registered dietitian. I have my own practice, Middleburg Nutrition. So it's both in New York and virtual. And we work with adults and kids on anything from GI issues, food allergies, postnatal, hormone issues, cardiovascular health, picky eating, you name it. I'm also the author of the Big Book of Organic Baby Food, the Big Book of Organic Toddler Food, and the Big Book of Pregnancy Nutrition, which just came out last year. And I'm a mom. I have of two kids. So I have a boy who's 9 and a little girl who's 7, not so little anymore, actually. And oddly, we were just talking about this. I wrote the Big Book of Organic Baby Food literally as I was introducing to my son to solids. And so that's why I feel like what the book wasn't just coming from a practitioner standpoint, it was coming from a mom who was doing this for the first time. So I know it's a time period where you really want to be handheld because especially like the first time around. So it's very detailed, very structured. So I really empathize what you're going through. And then my son, my second book, the toddler food book, suddenly I was like, now he's a picky eater. And while we were going through that phase, I wrote my second book. So
Your
I've been around
inspiration.
it. Yeah, totally. Great inspiration. Yeah, I'm happy just to jump in. I've been with Little Spoon also from their start, and it's amazing just to see all their offerings and how far they've come. They're such a great resource for parents.
They're amazing. I couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah.
Somebody has a 5-month-old who may be starting purees and peanut butter this weekend, but
Oh.
also has a picky toddler. So that person is in it, and we see you. You're going to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, when should you introduce solids? How do you know your baby is ready? And what should those first foods look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of pediatricians will tell you 4 to 6 months. I think 4 months for many babies is too early. So, I like to see it closer to 5 to 6 months, in all honesty. You want them to be able to sit up in their high chair. You want unassisted. You want good head control. Most importantly, what I notice with babies is that they have an interest in food. So they're like tracking your food, they're opening their mouths, or they like literally will grab food out of your hand. And to me, that's the biggest telltale sign. My daughter literally grabbed a zucchini from my hand and started eating, and that was the start of it
Just
all.
ready to go.
Ready to go. But I do think 4 months is a little early for most, honestly, for most kids. So I would say I would hold off a little bit. Now, within that frame of introducing solids, there tends to be two different ways to go about it, but doesn't have to be two separate ways to go about it. So there's the traditional purees, which is, the spoon-fed, the purees. And when you do that, you really want the beginning, the texture to slide off the spoon. That's what we're looking. And then you can,
Love a visual, so
yeah.
that is helpful.
And then you gradually can increase to say like a Greek yogurt texture and then go lumpy from there. And I do like the starting of one food for say 2 to 3 days and then move on to another food just for like the first few weeks, and then you can start to combine and get more comfortable with that. Then there is the baby-led weaning component, and that really is baby-led, where it's different than the purees, where you're offering food in the whole form that is soft, and the baby is more in control of it. That's really the premise. So it's really like you're starting with finger size when you cut it, and it has to be squishy, soft enough for when you touch it. Or it could be, think of it like a chunk, like steam very soft, like broccoli, something along those lines, or a banana peel that they're holding, or an avocado that they're holding, and they can like essentially gum. Pros for the baby-led weaning is fine motor skills, so hand-eye coordination. They can practice chewing, the pincer grasp. The other pros is that it's self-regulation. So some people feel that since they're leading the way of they're choosing what they want and how much they want, they're able to understand when their body's full and stop eating. And it could be more social, right? So they're eating the same thing that the family's eating, so it's similar food. So there's some pros there. My philosophy is I say do both. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I did both with both my kids, honestly. So you can offer pureed sweet potato and sweet potato in its soft form and let the baby explore. I think what's most important is that you give the baby control of the food. So
Yep.
even if it's doing purees, give them the spoon, let them, or put some puree on, if you're using a silicone mat or just on your high chair, and let them play with it and let them decide when they're. So you're giving them the independence to eat because you want an independent eater, but you're also letting them play and have fun. Let them get messy. Don't need to clean them up. That's the whole point of it. Let them.
That's the hardest part for me to accept, but that is what you just need to accept. It's messy
Hmm?
and you can't control that.
You can't just strip them. I just like stripped my kids. In terms of equipment, you actually don't need much. You need a high chair. You need almost like a splash mat to put on the bottom under the high chair because it gets messy. I mean, I used like a silicone bib, but like half the time that got thrown off.
Yep.
It just gets all over them. Think about like a loaded spoon, and because that can help for like a yogurt, like they can start to pick up the food there, or like with oatmeal, but half the time that gets thrown and they just use their hands. And then a little silicone cup really at the start, because at 6 months you can help them. They can start to drink some water with their meal, so you want to get that started. But imagine I think on Auggie, you guys have your intro to solids
We got lots of recs,
guide,
and
right?
we'll send them after this event. I want to make sure that we're getting relevant questions in. So this one seems to be because this person has a 19-month-old who currently only eats veggies in puree form, spits out any solid veggies like small pieces of broccoli/carrot. Any suggestions on how to shift away from puree veggies and more into solids?
Well, I guess like I would say try more if you're not doing some chunky purees, not just thin purees, go to chunky purees for sure. And I guess my other question would be like, is that all foods? Are they accepting any
Great
whole
question.
foods, not just, is it just a vegetable thing or is it a whole foods? It could be something, not that I'm concerned, but there maybe to talk to a pediatrician about if it's all foods that is being rejected from a texture perspective. I would
Child
say,
eats chicken and rice and noodles, just as an FYI.
oh, okay. So keep this is when we get into picky eating then. Keep trying. It's one of those, it could be 15, 20, they just because they're rejecting it now doesn't mean it will always be rejected for forever, honestly. So the fact that they're eating other textures like that makes it not seem like a feeding issue, because sometimes could be like a physical feeding issue. It doesn't sound like that is the case.
I
So
love the tip of thickening the puree because
yeah,
maybe they just like the taste of that and they're not used to the different texture for
yeah.
vegetables.
And also with the vegetables, to that point, maybe I love adding fat. And I think that's like a big fat is a big nutritional component very early on. If you think about breast milk, that's at least 60% fat, and kids need that for brain development. They need it for hormone production. They need it to absorb nutrients. So if you're doing the vegetables, think about like adding butter or ghee or coconut oil to it so it has more flavor, especially at 19 months. You could try it roasted versus steamed. So I would try it in different ways as well.
Okay, and she said we order our puree from Little Spoon, so at least she's doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And then, with, yeah, Little Spoon, can graduate to some of their other veggies and sauces too. So,
yeah, and maybe if they like those textures in the
that's it.
purees,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so nutrition basics for babies. Nutrition in the first year lays the foundation for growth and development. What
Yes.
are the key nutrients babies need, and how can parents ensure they're offering enough variety? Like, yeah, I'll leave it there, but then I have a follow-up question on like spices and seasoning.
Yeah. Also, just to go back to the intro to solids, it's very little at the beginning. Also, like, don't expect, I would say start about 30 minutes to an hour after maybe your first feeding. I think to have a breakfast as the first feeding is like a nice time to start. So you want the baby sitting down when they're not too hungry, they're not fussy, they're not too tired. You want it set in like an ideal time where they'll be like accepting of the food. So just think about that also from a perspective. It's usually just like once a day. If you're doing purees, it could be like a teaspoon at a time. But I don't, if the baby's asking for more, give them more. You don't need to stop them by any means. Let them, yeah, let them eat till they're done. The babies, that's what's wonderful about them. So, and even through toddlerhood, right? I think you'll notice some days some meals they might eat nothing, or some days, and then some days they seem to eat a lot. We're looking at their, and this like feeds into the nutrition question. We tend to hyper focus on a day for their nutrition, but when we're really talking about kids, we're looking at it at a week. So one day you might be like really upset that like I'm getting in all carbs, or my toddler or baby is not eating any protein, but then another day they're going to down like cottage cheese and eggs and like nut butter, what have you, and completely make up their needs. So throw
I
it in your
love that.
perspective. Yeah.
So one day shouldn't make you feel like a bad parent.
No, no, no. Don't define it by a day. Look, again, broaden the lens there for a true week, and that will make you feel a lot better there. Um,
Perfect. Stephanie, is there also a benefit to doing those first few foods, like specifically like allergens? Somebody's asking recommendations on how to introduce peanuts, which I know we'll get into, but like earlier in the day, just in case a
yes,
kid shows.
yes, yes. I always recommend early in the day as well, like when your pediatrician's office is opened, like so that's obvious. That's like typically the first call. So if there is some form of reaction, you want to be able to reach your doctors and get the care that you need. So I definitely recommend it earlier on in the day. Yes.
Uh,
Um,
all right, nutrients.
Nutrients. Okay, iron's a big one. So usually by 4 to 6 months, iron stores deplete for kids. So that's one of the reasons why pediatricians often recommended rice cereal as the first food because
Yes.
it's fortified with iron. Also, it's not an allergen, so it's safe. What's problematic, I like in my book, I call it like the decline in the rice cereal, is it actually offers no nutrients. So the iron that's fortified in is not highly absorbable. We want to get it from other forms of food, which I'll talk about, but also it's like rice cereal is just very bland. So you're just really introducing solids without much flavor, and it's void of any sort of nutrition. So I really don't recommend rice. And among all other things that we have to worry about, rice does tend to be higher in arsenic. But that, so yes, heavy metals is a concern, which is again another reason why we love Little Spoon because they test when you're looking at products just from like formula to baby food, the clean label purity, if a product is labeled with that, that means they've been tested, third party tested for over 400 contaminants. So that's one way that you can know because there's been a lot, through the years, a lot of press about lead and heavy metals and in baby food. So at least can be more confident in the food that you're giving your baby when you look at those products, just even supplements along the lines.
Yeah.
Okay, so iron. So there's heme iron, which is animal-based protein, and that gets absorbed way more efficiently by the body, like could be upwards of 40%. So think about like So that would be more meat, chicken, turkey based. I did a lot of beef stew. That was like easy for babies to eat, or really soft shredded chicken. You can puree it. I know it sounds gross, but babies don't, they're happy to take it in. So I would try and get iron from the real source. You can also get it from plant-based, like legumes. You can get it from broccoli. You can get it from tofu. It's just absorbed less efficiently there. And just a note for pregnant moms, if anyone's, I'm sure there's some pregnant moms here. Anemia, hey, you, Lily, anemia. I don't know if you're I do recommend getting tested every trimester because at least 40 to 50% of moms are anemic in pregnancy. And so that could lead also, right? You want your iron source, especially if you want to breastfeed and nurse, you want to make sure that you're very fortified. So get your needs, get your blood work checked so that you can, especially before baby comes, you can fortify yourself appropriately there. Just a shout out there. Okay, so then we have vitamin D. Vitamin D, if you're nursing, you typically need to add like 400 IUs of vitamin D, and that's usually liquid.
That was the most stressful part of the early days for me was remembering to do those little drops.
Those little drops, I know. A lot of great brands out there. I like Mary Ruth's Organics vitamin D. That's a good one. Put it in if you're doing a bottle, you can put it on your breast, you can put it on your finger. Like there's a lot of different ways to incorporate it. And then for all kids after 12 years, you usually need about 600 IUs. We can get it from the sun. Obviously, that's the best way to get it. It's just very hard to get it from our foods.
And
Another
if you're
shout out,
formula
yeah.
feeding, do you not need to give the drops?
Correct. Not for the correct. You do
Got
not need to give the drops. It's more for breastfed. And then another shout out for pregnant women is needs are closer to 4,000 to 5,000 IUs a day. So a lot of the pregnant women that I work with, I also want to get tested. And they typically, if you're on the East Coast, you're going to need more vitamin D levels as well and plan on nursing. There's that. So iron, vitamin D, two huge ones. I want to give a shout out for mention of probiotics here. So if your baby was born via C-section, if they're showing any signs of early eczema or food allergies, sensitive lungs as they get older, oftentimes there's many reasons for it, but oftentimes there is a gut issue there. So probiotics will definitely help, and could be preventative of it as well. So, or if you're a mom and you had mastitis, I had mastitis, both kids actually, and you're put on antibiotics. I recommend you take it and then your child takes it. There is a brand I like. It's called Claire Labs with a K, Klaire, and it's powder. So same thing, put it on your finger, put it on your breast, put it into a bottle. There's a lot of easy ways to incorporate that. And then also for my pregnant women, studies really show if you take a probiotic in your third trimester, it can help reduce the chances of eczema and allergies in kids.
Oh, well, I'm my third trimester today.
There you go. There you go.
You you brought up the C word, confidence, at one point, and I want to just talk about that a little bit because somebody has a 6-month-old, they're just starting out. I'm nervous about gagging and choking, any tips on how to become more confident as the baby learns how to map her mouth. I know gagging is inevitable, but it's terrifying as a new mom. So
Terrifying.
let's talk about the sounds and like what's normal.
Sounds are good.
Sounds.
Sounds are good.
Yeah.
So when it's silent, that's when it's scary because
Okay.
that's more choking versus gagging. It's the scariest thing, and you have to do nothing when they're gagging versus choking, right? You don't put your finger in the mouth. You just have to sit there and almost watch them because they might get red, the eyes might tear up, but the fact that they're making noises and they're coughing, that's a good sign, and they will ultimately work it out, which is just the importance of sitting with your child's, facing them while they eat. Because I know it's so easy to like want to clean up on the side, and especially just to have someone sitting there with your child so you can really watch it. Now the choking, I mean, it's all scary, but the choking, or when they're silent, when they're changing color, when they have this shocked look on their face and they can't do anything, that's really when either want to start pounding the back or make sure you just call, obviously, like 911 and get support there. I do recommend CPR classes.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask
Yeah.
that gave me confidence.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the more you're going to get confident. It's actually more confidence in your baby than it is yourself. Like you're like, wow, they worked it out, or wow, they can really gum this or handle these foods. So it's more about being confident and amazed of actually what your baby can do. They don't need teeth to be able to have like real foods, but it's just gonna the confidence just comes with time
Okay.
and just
Time and then like maybe potentially taking that class.
and the class. Yeah, exactly. So other nutrients, I mentioned fat. So if whatever route you're doing, so say you're doing purees, in my book, I like to make it in bulk and then you freeze a lot of purees, put it in
Or
silicone
is it?
containers, and then you move it to like a stasher bag or something and you label it. It's up good in the freezer up to 6 months, and then you have single purees, and then you can heat it up in a saucepan. Add fat, add ghee or butter, as I said, coconut oil, or maybe you're roasting the vegetables first in a fat and then pureeing it. So that goes a long way. I will also say, don't ignore fat with the picky eaters if you're worried about nutrition. So you can even add more fat onto like butter, onto pasta, onto toast. That is a great source of nutrition for kids. Even grass-fed butter. So something along those lines is like you're still doing a really wonderful job if they're getting in the fats there.
So cool.
Omegas are really important for brain health, and choline, other nutrients. So babies, it's a good time to start with. It's soft. Start with salmon, start with cod, start with sardine. So just because if you don't like fish, oftentimes parents don't introduce it because they're not like fish eaters. And I get that, but try and introduce it early on with your kids to get that. I mean, you can also get it from plant-based sources like ground flax or chia. Same thing though as like the iron, it's just not as absorbable. So getting it from the real thing is important. And then choline for brain health is up and coming. It's now we're finding it's as important as omegas. Eggs are a wonderful source of choline, but you can also get it from Brussels sprouts and legumes and tofu as well if there is an egg allergy. But I love eggs as like an early on food. And then I do want to talk about protein because a lot of people stress about protein, especially with picky eating. And just because protein's everywhere now as like the end all be all of foods. I don't know if anyone's feeling that. It's for 1 to 3 year olds, their needs are 13 to 16 grams of protein a day. It is not that high. So
What is that equivalent in
yeah,
terms of
so
size?
like an egg is like 6 grams.
Okay.
Like even like a few spoonfuls of Greek yogurt is like 4, because Greek yogurt for the whole cup is like 15 grams. If you're having half a cup of edamame, that's like 4 to 6 grams. If you're having even sourdough toast could have 4 grams of protein in it, and oatmeal has protein in it. So it's a piece of cheese, like you get protein in it. So it's not that hard to hit your protein needs if you think about it. So you want to serve protein with every meal. You want to try and serve a protein with a snack. And as I said, some days, again, cottage cheese, yogurt, like there's so many different sources that we don't think about necessarily as like great sources of protein. 1 ounce of even say chicken, meat, what have you, is going to be at least 7 grams, and that's 1 ounce. So that's not a stressor I'm concerned about. Milk, great source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, on picky eating, someone just wrote in, and we'll get into picky eating and is it a crisis and all of that. But
Yeah.
specifically, I find that my 2-year-old son eats his little spoon meals well at daycare, but is fussier at home. Any recommendations on how to enforce better eating or less picky habits at home?
Interesting that, you know,
Maybe
kids,
being around other kids eating.
yeah, kids often when they're around other kids eating tend to eat different foods and tend to be less picky and tend to eat the foods. They know how to it's a control issue at home. It's not a control issue as much at daycare. So the more that you try and control it or stress about it, the more they will rebel and they will push against it. So your job is to stay neutral. As hard as it is, you can't force anything in this picky. They're trying to exert independence. The whys of picky eating, first of all, is flavor windows close at around 18 months.
Okay.
So they're just after 18 months, they're just gonna all kids are less susceptible to try new foods and like liking different flavorings. their growth speed after 12 months slows down. So oftentimes toddlers like actually aren't eating as much. They're not as hungry. They're not growing as rapidly as babies. And then you also want them to not put everything in their mouth. Like you want them to, it's like survival techniques. Like you want them to be like a little curious and a little doubtful of what they're putting into their mouth. I think it's actually quite a good sign. So instead of looking at that necessarily as picky eating, they become more selective. They want to exert control. So I would say like, and again, I always am like, you know what? If I get like 1 out of 3 meals where I feel like they're eating well, that's a win. You're not going to get 3 out of 3 meals where they're going to eat as well. You just don't want to create an environment, a stressful environment at home around food where you're saying you have to eat your food or, whatever the hemming and hawing in between it really is. So make it fun. Part of it is making it more a little bit, maybe put on some music, have your toddler like help pick out some songs. So to try and make it more of an enjoyable eating environment if it's not
Yeah,
stressful.
you are the feeding expert, so I cannot speak there, but two things just that personally really have worked in my household is going to a supermarket that has the
Yeah.
little kid carts. That has been game changing for me and my son because he goes in and we make it like a game. Like, can you find something green that you want to pick out? Or, okay, red. And then we go home and then we try it. And then also to your music point, specifically with picky eating or if we're like in a mood or there are big feelings that day, introducing like a Tony character and his Tony box or like the Yodo box if you have it has been wonderful because he kind of locks in on the story and like doesn't even know he's eating like as he or he knows, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit less stressful.
100%. I say look at like I have the 3 P's, which is like patience,
Oh,
persistence, and then
oh
playfulness.
yes.
So it is creating these games wherever you can at the dinner table. I used to play this game all the time, which is there's 2 games. One is like what has the loudest crunch of the
Oh,
foods that you're eating.
fun.
It's just super fun. And then another game is we would all close our eyes. My son or daughter would take a bite of whatever food's on their plate, and we all have to guess what food it was. It's like these little games that may work for some kids, may not work for others, but it helps. These little things help. But I mean, we're sort of jumping into some of the picky eating, but yes, I mean, the having them have control. So going to a farmer's market, having them go to a supermarket, and yeah, saying like, today we're picking out something like red in the supermarket, and like, let's see how ways that we can incorporate them. Have them be part of the process. You can get them their own chef's hat or kids chef night kit, help you chop, help you mix. Even if we just want engagement with food. They don't need to, even if they're like chopping up peppers, they don't need to be eating it. First step is that they're just showing interest in food. We don't want them scared of food. So that's going to be really, really, really important. And then also just celebrating like the small changes. So within the picky eating window, I would say like, for example, yogurt. So they love yogurt. Switch up the brand. Don't just stick to the same brands. So we don't want to we want to prevent some rigidness there. So, it just offers flexibility that no matter where you go, you're traveling, you could pick up any type of yogurt, for example.
Yeah.
Even with pasta, switch up the shape. That's even the way you cut certain foods, bread, switch the way you cut certain foods. Like those will all, even that doesn't feel like anything big, it adds up and it actually can make quite a difference there.
What about if like food refusal is a constant thing, like with a specific food? Do you just move on or do you keep trying?
Keep trying. Oh, keep trying. I think one of the things that I know we tend to do is, for example, I'm just calling out like pear or whatever. If there's a certain food that a child doesn't eat or says, I don't like pears, we cross it off our list and we tend to put, oh, I'm not going to serve pears because they won't eat it. It changes a million times. I feel like the thing you can expect most is change in this feeding journey. So
Yeah.
one day they will like gobble up a pear and ask for another one. So I just say I really say keep trying.
Yeah, someone also just wrote in this is another great tip. I think like especially if you find one that doesn't have a ton of sugar, but my toddler refuses to eat chicken and most proteins at home,
Uh,
but dips sometimes help.
yeah.
Dips are wonderful, I think. Stephanie, please
Dip.
give me that win.
Yes, dips are awesome. And they're fun. So people sometimes also like kids like kebabs, or you get little muffin tins and put food in muffin tins and the kids eat it. So it's like a wild any sort of change, but dips really help kids eat, especially proteins, different foods, and makes it fun again.
Not to add this to like the mental load and like
I
compare
know.
to, like what you're seeing on Instagram, but I did get a dinosaur, like a mini dinosaur shape cutter, and
Right.
it took like 2 more minutes, but all of a sudden he was like devouring cucumbers because they were shaped like a dinosaur.
Right, I know exactly. Or like you get the little kids chopsticks, and sometimes, I mean, they're hard, but that's a little older.
Yeah.
But I get a little switch like that, or like a new interesting fork. Suddenly, the mealtime is that much more interesting. It does. I mean, it requires all these are a lot of things, um, and it requires a
But they connect all to your playful comment, right? Like you don't have to do all of them,
nope,
but kids by nature enjoy to play. And if in some way you can incorporate that and it leads to success, then that's a win.
100%. And then, ev- they will eventually grow older. If you put in the effort, it goes a long way, right? As they get older. And then they are going to be curious about more foods and want to try more foods once they get past this this really, really heavily picky eating toddler stage. It does get a little easier, but it is you do have to put in the effort, and you have to use helpers too. Again, that's why I also love Little Spoon, because it's not like you have to cook everything yourself. It's a trusted source. You can get some of their meals as well to help with diversity, because it's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
constantly mix things up all the time.
You have to sometimes outsource parts of your village. And for
Yeah.
me, Little Spoon was a part of my village. It made my life easier. And it was a wonderful resource to have at home on the days where I felt like I couldn't show up as like a chef, or
100,
um,
100%. And then I will say, when you are introducing new foods, uh, you don't want a mound of it on their plate. So start small. Again, small wins. A little bit, it's intimidating. And don't even call it out. Don't even be like, try the piece of whatever it is. Just put it there. Don't make, again, neutral, neutral, neutral.
cool. Just quickly going back to the distractions, because again, I want to make sure people are getting their questions
Yeah.
answered. My 19-month-old nowadays doesn't eat unless we show her videos of herself. We used to play music and then we just let her play with music and toys, and that worked for a while until it didn't. Any tips on how to get a toddler not to rely on distractions during mealtime? Because I do like that's relatable because it is hard to get out
Very
of a pattern when you're in one.
100%. 100%. And we feel like, I don't know, all systems are going to shut down when we
Yeah.
stop it. But honestly, they may make a fuss the first few times that you don't do it, and it's going to be hard. And then it's okay. Like, it's hard as parents, the setting of the boundaries, right? And kids do respond ultimately to structure and rules. And it's good, as I said, so they'll probably whine or cry or fuss about it for the first few times, and then slowly that will get a lot easier. And it'll be okay. You just have to do it. And the distractions, in terms of, we do want to try, of course, of course you're going to have once in a while like a screen in front of your kid. Like, we all do that. But I think on a just more consistent basis, we want to try and have it eating screen free, so they don't rely on the screens in order to eat.
Yeah. What about getting outside and eating? Does that ever help, especially as it's getting nicer out?
Yeah. Well, some kids are more distracted outside. They just want to get up and play. So it really just depends on the kids. And some kids, my daughter loved eating outside. She thought it was so fun.
Yeah.
So again, just a change of scenery, and maybe if there's an element of people also being more relaxed when you're eating outside, that could be helpful as well. One.
Just to double down on the screen, because this person is saying the problem is she then won't eat if we don't play the videos. So do you hold this boundary? I mean, eventually I'm assuming she will eat. She'll
Yeah, and I think that then the question becomes, do you then, if she doesn't eat, do you offer then more snacks? Like, what happens when she doesn't eat? Does she know then, like, I'm not going to eat and then I'll, no snacks? Okay, I see the answer there. She'll eventually eat. She'll eventually eat. They won't starve themselves.
yeah.
They
So hold
won't
the
starve.
boundary.
I would hold the boundary. Again, I know it's so hard, but I would hold the boundary. It's going to be easier in the long
Yeah.
term for you. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love this question that also just came in. At what point do you try to have the whole family eat the same meal versus accommodating the kids? And then also to add on, at what point do you all like recommend all sitting down if it's like in your schedule to eat together?
Anytime,
Okay.
right? I mean, it's not going to be realistic for all families all the time, but I would say anytime you could have a babe once the baby, even pre, just to see the family all eating together. You can have like the baby join the table even before, but they love to be part of it. And that actually helps. It's role modeling. That's a big part of it too, right? So
Yeah.
they see you eating, they want to be part of it. So I'd say really at any time, do the family meals, you know, if you can from the start. If you can't do all, I mean, all meals is going to be tough, but even just breakfast time, or maybe you start with like Friday and Saturday night dinners, you know, you sort of work it out with the family when you could do that. I mean, I think that's part of the long-term game here of what we're talking about with feeding kids is we want to try and have separate kid food from adult food. Which
Yeah.
again, people have all different schedules. So oftentimes the parents are coming home late. They can't eat with the kids at 5 o'clock. I get that. But if you can really start to think about we're all eating the same meal, that will pay off in the long term. And there might be different sides, but like you might be like, tonight is the way I also like to look at families. Meal planning is really hard. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people structure with it. I struggle with it. I do it in my job day to day, but like personally, it's really hard too. I come up with weeknight themes. So, like, for example, Monday night, salmon nights, Tuesday night is like chicken night, Wednesday night is pasta night. So, there's themes, and within that, you can have flexibility. You can change around what it is. The kids like it because it honestly is predictable and fun for them. They know what to expect. I mean, we even put in Friday night is pizza night, Saturday night is sushi night, even when we're ordering in. Can't
Yeah.
be that all the time. But I think it becomes really helpful for all. And I think that's a nice way that like we're all as a family unit trying to eat the same foods the best that we can.
Yeah, I love what you just brought up because, like, it sounds like in your household you're introducing a ton of different things, sushi, salmon.
My kids are 7 and 9 though.
Yeah, no,
So,
but I think it's
but yeah,
wonderful. And
yeah,
it kind of leads into the next topic, which is building healthy habits from the start.
yeah,
How do we help our kids build a positive, lasting relationship with food from day one? Like, I think,
yeah,
especially now with social media and how much we're learning that
yeah,
it impacts kids, but specifically girls.
yeah.
Um, I
Yeah, that's why for
think
me, yeah, for me, like behaviors around food and the feelings about food, like almost, yes, of course, as a nutritionist, I'm a dietitian, I'm concerned about the nutrition, but I can't, that's where you want the fun, right? And you want the adventure component of it. As they're younger, because you want to control everything that they're eating. But I think there's an element as you go, like you have to sort of open it up and be a little bit more flexible because um, as you, there's a balance of not being also too strict and too controlling with the food because as they get older, they're going to be in middle school and they're going to all go to the local candy store. They're going to need to be able to navigate getting candy and getting junk food and eating with their friends. And, so I think there's an element of like, it's not about not giving treats, it's about like just how the kids are able to listen to their body is first and foremost. How they, again, having fun in the kitchen or with you making foods, even if you're just making cookies, like whatever it is that they like are having fun with food so that they have a good relationship with food. So I just see it's a little bit, if you're too strict, going through the motions, that can backfire a little bit at the end. But you want them at those that have sit down together and like eat their food, and you can have conversations all together. There's various books that you could do that's fun that you just don't do at the dinner table that talk about like nutrition and food, which is like just don't bring the nutrition up at the dinner table. Talk about how food and nutrition impacts your body and how you feel. And there's great books you could read at bedtime and little things like that. Become impactful, but it's listening to your body, being able. So once, for example, like I'll give you Cliff Bars, kids Z bars, right? I just like never kept them around, and my daughter became like obsessed with Z bars, and she kept begging. I bought them finally, but the first day we bought them, she had 3 Z bars in a day.
Yeah.
Right? The next week she had 2. Month in, she's like, I don't like them anymore. It's just like that prime example of just, again, not restricting for restricting purposes, because that's going to be the more
Backfires.
it just backfires. It's going to be the more that they want. And again, so it's just introducing a lot of different things, the best that you can, and not being too hard on yourself about it, not being too hard on your kids about it. And as long as they're healthy, they're growing, they're energetic, right? I think I get it if it's sort of different. If there's some gut issues, if there's some allergies, like that becomes a lot harder. Because which we'll dive into a little bit of allergies. Like my son had allergies, nuts and tree nuts, peanuts, and eggs, and that becomes really scary because you actually really have to uber control what they're eating, and that often leads to picky eating because you don't have the opportunity to diversify as you like. So
That's kind of where I wanted us to like end on, because
yeah,
it's a lot of people have these questions
yeah.
about using allergens and when and how and the best ways.
Yeah. So now science is constantly changing on it. It was different than when my son was little. You want to, or especially for peanut, eggs, and milk, it's 4 to 6 months. It's starting them as introducing allergens as early as possible, especially on those. And you start with a small amount. So if you're doing peanut butter, some people even will thin it out. I don't think you need to do that, but you'll put it on a little piece of toast. I think that's like a great way to do it. Some people might mix it with yogurt. If you've introduced yogurt before, that's a dairy, that's another allergens. There's now 9 top allergens. They've added sesame, which wasn't always the case. It was always like 8, but sesame has become a prominent one. And I think it's hidden in a lot of things. So I'm really happy that it's now
Yeah.
being like listed more on the labels and things of that nature. So there's the top 9 allergens, and yep, you want to start them one at a time. Again, early in the morning with a small amount. Check how they're doing, right? Because if there's any sort of hives, swelling, that's sort of like the first thing you'll see. Redness all over, maybe skin irritation, which could just be skin. It might not be like a true allergen. Then the seriousness of like if their throat starts to close up, or like the tongue swells. Usually in the first try it won't be as severe if you start it young versus as they're older. That's more problematic, but it's really showing that it can really be helpful to reduce all the allergens, and you want to do it consistently, so it's not just one and done. That's also what's complicated about it all. But we talked about this, I love a brand called Ready Set Food because they really help you with it, because they have specific different allergens in powdered form that you can add to single purees. You can add it to bottles.
Brand just actually reached out to me. You can get it now, but they're going out of business.
Oh,
I know.
okay, we'll get it now.
Wonderful.
Oh, that's sad. Someone else started. I know there's a few other companies. I just liked them because it was good quality. It was,
Yeah.
organic. They had an oatmeal that had all the top 8 allergens. Um, so yeah, get it while you can for intro. Otherwise, yes. So it's one at a time. Probably try and keep getting something in the mix. I know soy and, fish and shellfish might be harder for other people, but soy, think about edamame, tofu, something along those lines, for that. And allergies are weird there. And sometimes even without the 8 allergies, my daughter was allergic to kiwi, right? So there's going to be other foods that are going to randomly pop up. So it's why you just want to start slow and steady. And then I said, have the probiotics, you'll meet with an allergist, and then, see how you can navigate that. But oftentimes, if there are allergies in the family, severe allergies, you want to talk to your doctor because they might recommend that you do it at their office or something along those lines. If there's severe eczema, it might be an indication that there might be some food allergies. So just make sure you communicate with your doctor so you can do it in the safest way possible. That can be really scary.
Yeah. Stephanie, this is amazing. I have learned so many things.
A lot. Did we answer all the questions?
I wanted, if anyone wants to take off their, mute and ask a question, this is the opportunity to do it. Sometimes it gets a little awkward because nobody does. So I'm going to give 10 seconds. And if you
I
want,
noticed someone said there was a book they recommended.
yeah, send that link of that book. We want it.
Yeah, there used to be something I used that was called Veggies Buds Club. That was which I loved, and it was of the month, the veggie of the month, and they had recipes, and they had maybe like Augie can do this down the road, and you would get a box of, and now you could do the blog. Yeah, you could. They have recipes of ways to incorporate different like fruits and veggies. Really like easier recipes, but it used to involve planting and reading a book. Like I have a book, Zora Zucchini, and it's all about like growing zucchini. And my like kids are fascinated, and then they always want to make zucchini bread or like do something with zucchini, which is super fun.
Great. I have no idea. I'm frozen on my end, so I'm sorry if I am on yours. But if anybody wants to ask a question, please feel free to do
And
that.
other resources for intro to solids, I think we can, if you want some holding hands, there's lots of books. Obviously, like my book is heavy into the purees, but spices. Lily, we didn't talk about the spices.
Oh,
That's
yes.
a question about spices, which I love. Not spicy food, but when you talk about herbs and spices like cinnamon and ginger and cumin and cardamom, add them to the purees. Have fun with them. My book actually talks about like each puree and what spices can go along with it, or which foods and spices can go along with it. But that's another way to help prevent picky eating is adding all these flavors early on. Again, spices, not spicy food. And then, but solid starch is also a wonderful like resources in terms of learning. I did something with Love Every. We
Yeah.
did intro to eating food guys, and they have some wonderful resources. So there's lots of things out there that can really give you every little detail along the way. Is there a maximum amount of food? Like, that's their whole question.
Yeah.
Is there a max? Sorry.
No worries.
There are maximum amounts of food per meal. Is now eating 2 to 3 meals a day. It needs quite a lot of solid food per meal. We just play it by ear and yeah. I think he doesn't know that he is full. He's starting to throw up milk after bottle and nap after the solids meal. Got it. I mean, usually if he's throwing up, that might well, if he's starting to throw up, might not need the milk after. You could wean the milk. How old is he? 6 months. Oh. Um, hmm. Well, I mean, if he's really eating a lot of food, though, I would maybe still even consider possibly less, yeah, less milk. I mean, we ultimately like want the food, which is a great thing there. Um, um, which is maybe also you might not want the milk. I don't know when you're timing the milk after the meal too, if it's not spaced out or not there. So something to consider there as well. But I feel like if he's loving food, that's a good size. But also like, tracking growth and other GI stuff with your doctor is important. And then my 19-year-old has eczema, too late to introduce probiotics, not at all. Introduce it at any time. It will be incredibly helpful. And then you get probiotics. You can also get it through ferment, like picky eating, talking about fermented veggies is a great source. There is one particular yogurt that I love, like Nancy's organic yogurt has wonderful strains of live and active cultures. I instead of just getting it from food, I recommend if it's eczema to add in a probiotic there, but not at all, never too late. Never too late. Can start at any time. I like Florist Store if there's after antibiotic use. Definitely that's good for 2 weeks after, at least. 15 loves one food and the next day hates it. Yes. Okay. So my 15-year-old is super picky, loves one food, then the next day hates it, also wants milk or water frequently before eating. Um, should I insist she drinks after she has eaten a bit or just let her do what she wants? I would do the water. The milk will fill her up, so I would do more the water with the a little bit before and then with the food for her and save the milk for more between. And totally normal, loves one food the minute, but and then hates it the next. As I said, the hating part continue. He or she will accept it again eventually. It really will. So keep trying to introduce it and don't cross it off the list. And you'll be surprised and amazed that she'll come back to it. The ready set food mix in for allergens, is that preferred over pureeing the actual ingredients for them? Okay, I just looked at the ready set food mix-ins for allergens. Is that preferred? No, it's not preferred over you doing it yourself. It's just a lot of parents find it overwhelming to do it yourself. So it's like a helpful tool. And also they do have mix-ins with multiple allergens at once you've tried um all the individual ones. So it helps with the frequency of it because you want
Yeah.
to continue with it. So it just makes it easier. But doing it yourself is definitely great. It just a lot of parents have a tough time keeping up with it. And again, I really loved their oatmeal because it had 8 allergens all together in it, and they don't include the shellfish because that just made it smelly and taste bad.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Any other, I think we cover it?
Yeah, I think we did it. I'm proud of us.
Yes. Books Wishy-Washy that happened. Okay, that's the book.
Yeah.
Or said kiwi and sour, loved it. Yeah. I think we covered it.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much. And everybody on the call, thank you for spending some of your Friday with us. We will follow up with information on how you can reach Stephanie and more information on Little Spoon. And I will also include some of these resources that we talked about today. So thank you so much for joining and have a great weekend. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.